Most bearing, sleeve bearing, most of the sleeve bearings are not standardized. Very few of them are standardized sleeve bearing. But for the rolling element bearing, most of them are standard parts. Those are standard parts. And we just need to, standard parts, we just need to know how to use it. We just need to know how to use it. For example, ball bearings, and we need to know how to use it. Certainly, the whole size decided by the shaft size, right? And then you have the overall size, and then you have a thickness. That's another concept we need to study. It's called reliability. And that's how we defined reliability. Is that we have a concept, for example, 90% reliability. And this is a concept that under certain load, without talking about load, there's no sense to talking about reliability under certain load. And if you have certain cycles, rotate so many cycles, normally we use 90 times 10 to 6 cycles. And if 100 bearing, inside that, among those 100 bearings, if you have 10 goes wrong, something's wrong with 10 of them, then you have 90% reliability. 90% reliability. Okay, so it's kind of complex concept because it involves load, involves life, how many cycles, and there's a big number here, 90 times 10 to 6 cycles, 90 million cycles. And then you have like 90% that is right, that is good, 10% is bad. You would say, wow, 10% is bad. We didn't see that a high rate for bearings goes wrong, right? And now, the reality is that we have another thing that if you have higher reliability, then this life, that's what we're going to study, this life will be shortened. Now let's first take a look of what is this life, this 90 times 10 to 6 cycle here. For example, if you have an automobile, your wheel size is 24-inch diameter, and 24-inch diameter, that's about a very small passenger car, maybe has a 24-inch diameter wheel. And if this wheel 24-inch diameter and runs on 90 times 10 to 6 cycles, and that's diameter, so you go one revolution, it's going to be pi d, so it's going to be pi times 24 times that, and then you divide by 12, and then you divide by how many miles is an inch, is a foot, maybe 5,000, 5120 feet a mile, and then you got about 107,000 miles. 107,000 miles. So it's about like 100,000 miles you still think, well, for example, if you have a vehicle, you would say, I don't see that many cars that has problem with bearing at 100,000 miles. Thus, it's a load, where the load comes into play. Okay, by the way, if a vehicle, the bearing goes wrong, it's very dangerous. How can you tell if your car, that a bearing goes wrong? Normally, if a bearing goes wrong, it gives you a howling noise. It's like a ho 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 ho. When the vehicle runs faster and faster, the frequency of the howling noise goes to higher and higher. Ho 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 ho. If you like accelerates somehow like that, and it's a bearing goes wrong, it's very dangerous. Okay, now. So the load is what we gave a lot of safety factors for the bearing when we design vehicles, and many factors affect the bearing life when we talk about bearing life, and many factors affect that, and certainly load. Impact, and now if you have the vehicle is sealed, the bearing is sealed very well, you don't see the bearing unless you take it apart. But some machines, you can see the bearing. If you have debris gets into the bearing, then you can damage the bearing very fast. So that's a bearing. The impact is potholes, and the potholes make your bearing goes bad very fast. Okay. Also, for example, ball bearing, there are two types. One is lubricated, and one is unlubricated. For ball bearing, rolling element bearing, you don't have to lubricate them. And for lubricated, you have permanent seal. So that means you have lubricant, and then you have a seal over there, and then you have unsealed, just some grease over there. You need to add grease all the time. You have those. If a seal goes bad, the bearing will go bad very fast too. All right. Now, the standard bearing, the life of standard bearing, we have a formula for that. We're not gonna talk about how do we derive the formula. We just gave out the formula here. We just like to know how do we apply that. So, at 90% reliability life, how long it can run, we call L10. We call it L10 here. And the L10 is equal to, we're going to give this formula here, it's equal to LR. I'll explain what is LR. C divided by FR, and raised to the power 3.33 power. Certainly this is going to be L10 is going to be the 90% reliability life. That means, okay, if a bearing has a 90% chance survive for this long life, this many cycles, this life has a unit of cycles, how many rotations you're gonna have here. And then this one here is rated life. Rated life is actually a constant. For many situations, we just use 90 times 10 to 6. So this rated life is a constant. It's 90 times 10 to 6. And then the C is rated load here, and then the FR is actual radial load. Okay, so this is formula here. L10 equal to LR times this number here. Okay, this number here.